I'm going to talk about the Yates coat from Grainline Studio. Good morning, beautiful people. I'm Alex and this is Gingerhead & Co, my sewing vlog. Today I'm going to talk about this pattern, Yates coat from Grainline Studio, and I'm going to take the coat off because I had it on for 10 seconds and I'm already sweating. It's made of wool. So, well, anyway, I made the coat. It looks like that. And I am going to insert some photos or record some mini video to show you how it looks like on me, because I'm recording in the house, so I'm just sweating, obviously. I just wanted to show you the lining because I really like my lining. I can take it off. It is a wool coat, so I am hot. Well, anyway, let's put it here. So it's here in case I need it. It's also quite heavy. Well, so I told you that I was going to make this pattern. I didn't like the pattern when I saw it on Grainline Studio's website. Then I saw it made up in London at the Knitting and Stitching show, and I fell in love because it looked absolutely perfect. At first I thought it would be kind of shapeless and not necessarily my style, but I was so wrong. I'm often wrong about certain patterns, and I like seeing them on people to kind of make up my mind and to decide if I want to make it or not. I love this coat. Full disclosure, I'm absolutely in love. I would like to make another one, but I just kind of wonder if I need the same version of the coat in multiple fabrics. Let's talk about the pattern. So the pattern, Yates coat, looks like that, and there is only one view, which is enough. It looks like that in the drawings, and it comes in sizes from 0 to 18, which doesn't really matter that much till you go to body and finished garment measurements. So body measurements for size 0 is 32 bust, 25, that's inches, 25 waist and 35 hips, and then finished garment measurements, so it's quite a lot of these. Bust is 36 inches, waist 37 inches and hip 39 inches, and then size 18, which is the top size in this pattern, would be accordingly body measurements: bust 44 inches, waist 37 inches and hip 47 inches, and then finished garment measurements: bust 48, waist 49 inches, hip 51. You need about 3 meters of fabric. You don't need 3 meters if you are making smaller sizes, but you will need to buy 3 meters and also take into consideration the shrinkage. So it's always better to buy slightly more, especially that if you are making it from wool, like me, wool shrinks. So it's good to remember about that. I didn't use 3 meters, I made size 0, the smallest. So I suppose it's kind of size 6 in the UK, and it's quite roomy, but it's got quite narrow sleeves, and my arms and my wrists are narrow, so it's perfect for me. But it concerns me a bit because this is the first coat, definitely the first coat, but also one of very, very few patterns that fits me well in the wrists. It's not too wide, and well, in the arms as well. So I kind of think if anybody has slightly bigger arms, slightly bigger wrists, which is quite common, they might need to adjust for that, because the sleeves might be too narrow, especially if you want to wear something like a thick jumper. Be careful. Make muslin, obviously. And the pattern says that the level is intermediate, and it's true, it's not extremely difficult, so I don't think you need any advanced skills. It's more time-consuming than difficult. But there are certain things that I wouldn't recommend it as the first coat to make. If you've never made a coat, maybe start with Kelly Anorak or Eden by Tilly and the Buttons, because their instructions are super clear and detailed, and the coats or jackets are not too difficult to make. This one, not that difficult. I think the instructions are very good, but not as detailed as Tilly and the Buttons, for example, or Kelly Anorak. You could make this coat, but that would probably require more patience if you are a novice, if you've never made a coat. If you have made coats, well, that's not going to be a problem, obviously. So I know that some people ask me about it, and I know that it's weird for some people. I do time myself when I sew something for the first time, and I did time myself making the coat. I bought the PDF pattern, so I'm not including the timings of sticking the pattern together, putting the PDF pattern together. I quite like it, so I don't always have it printed in A0 because I quite like it. But the times are without cutting out, and just the sewing and the kind of reading the instructions and thinking about it and all that. Sewing all together took me about 12 hours. And it's the shell and the lining, and putting the snaps in without the final press, because I do the final press, but there is a lot of pressing in the coat anyway, so you will have to press a lot. Like you sew a seam, you press a seam. Do that or your coat will look horrible. There is no escape, but I do my final press, like I press everything for about an hour the next day. I prefer that because I've got more energy, I'm not tired, and I'm not like fed up with the item, so with the garment, the coat. It works for me, it doesn't have to work for you, so add an hour for extra press. But all the normal pressing of the seams and whatnot, that's included, so about 12 hours. And I didn't make a muslin because I checked the pattern against my bodice block, and I thought, for me, the points where there might be some problems are usually shoulders and arms, because my shoulders and my arms are usually narrower. So very often I have to make either narrow shoulder adjustment or just kind of make it narrower in some way. It depends, because sometimes I change the neckline and sometimes I make it shorter and it works. It depends, but usually that's the problem, and I thought there wouldn't be a problem here, and yeah, it fits me. So I didn't change a lot, I didn't change much really. I didn't change the length because I thought, despite the fact that I'm 5'3", so I'm shorter than the pattern was drafted for, I thought it would fit me. I didn't mind it being slightly longer on me, and I think, well, that's precisely what I wanted. The sleeves are not too long, and again, I'm not quite sure if it's just me or what, because very often I don't have to shorten the sleeves. Even if I have to shorten the body, or if I have to shorten the bodice in the dress, I don't have to shorten the sleeves. So I'm not sure. My limbs are not, nothing in my body is long, let's face it, but maybe proportionally my arms are longer. I don't know, but I thought that would be perfect, and it is perfect, the length of the sleeves. That's a lot of talking about sleeves for some reason. Apart from that, I only added the loop, the hanging loop, because I don't understand why it's not in the pattern. We need loops, hanging loop. And I added my Ginger Head & Co label. Yeah, it's like slightly wonky here. The loop should be on both sides, but I thought the loop would be too big. So I kind of decided that, wonky as it is, it's not going to be on the other side of the label. I'll think about it for the next coat. When I make the next coat, I'll think about the placement. And I got the fabric. This is 100% wool, and I really think it is. And it's from Colville. It was only 15 pounds per meter. I got 3 meters, and it's really good. It's really good quality. It's thick and kind of meaty. It's boiled wool. It sewed well. I didn't have any problem. I did the burn test, as I might have told you, and well, obviously I'm not such an expert to know if it's 100% wool, but it definitely has high wool content, and my cat sniffs at it and slips on it. And I told you that for me this is like the best test, because my cat likes wool, and every time we've got something made out of wool, or I buy fabric with wool in it, Ulysses is on it. So the more wool in the fabric, the more Ulysses on the fabric. Also, and that's one of my weird and wonderful, you don't have to do that, I smell my fabric, as you might know. So when you smell your fabric, you kind of know if it's like plasticky, kind of acidic smell, if it's like nice, pleasant, or if it's like hairy. So wool generally smells of lanolin. If you, well, it smells of sheep, but clean sheep, like lamb or something. So like a live lamb. When you go and sniff animals, you kind of know. If you have a cat with a thick undercoat, that would contain lanolin. Lanolin is that substance that covers the hair, prevents it from kind of getting dirty, and it's soft. It's usually on the undercoat of the animal. So if your cats have undercoat, thick undercoat, if you smell that, it's similar. No, I'm not mad, I'm not crazy. It's true. But well, anyway, so the wool was from Colville. I'm very happy with it. And my lining, I had to add like super extra special lining. So my lining is from minket.com, and I kept it for something special. I kept it for a coat that would be plain, because I thought that would like make the lining more obvious. But my jackets are generally not plain. That might be why I wanted it. I wanted the Yates coat to be plain. So the coat, the silhouette is straight, and the sleeves are pretty straight as well. The sleeves are two parts, so there is the undersleeve and the upper sleeve. It's got pockets, so it's got inseam pockets, like here. The pockets are lined, right? So you've got this panel here, the bottom panel, and the pockets are in the bottom panel. They're very easy to make. And as I said, the instructions are pretty clear. There is a mistake. The interfacing is labeled, the number of the interfacing in the photos or in the instructions is not the same as the interfacing on the interfacing piece, so on the pattern piece that you cut out. But it takes about 3 seconds of your time to work it out. It's somewhere here. If you see that, just look at your interfacing. Does it fit the place where it should go? They've got quite distinctive shapes, so it shouldn't be a problem. Other than that, I don't think there is anything in the instructions that I would argue with. I was surprised again, but maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just getting obsessed with the lack of stay stitching for the collar. I stay stitched mine, it doesn't harm. Collars stretch, especially if you make them in wool. There is a risk of stretching, so why risk it? Maybe because coats are usually made out of fabric that is more stable, maybe the lack of stay stitching doesn't really matter. But I stay stitched mine, and it didn't really make any negative impact on the process of sewing. So if you're wondering whether to stay stitch or not, I did, it worked, it's fine. I stay stitch my collars because I just do. Also, the coat is bagged out, so you kind of pull it out through the lining gap in the sleeve. So you've got a gap in the sleeve in your lining, and you pull it all out. And I think Tillian the Button explains it the best in her Eden coat, because it's much easier if you put your hand there and you reach to the opposite side of the corner of the jacket or the coat, and you pull it from there. It's faster. It's such a tiny little tip, but it works brilliantly, and I always do it like that now, and it works. But I was surprised that they first tell you to sew the lining as it is, right? Not leaving the gap, and then unpick the part of the sleeve that you will need to pull the coat through. I didn't do that. Obviously, I left the gap, because I always do. If I bag out my coats or jackets, I just leave it. Like, I leave the part that I will need, especially that you can do back tucks at the beginning and at the end. So I don't know. I kind of thought about like pressing the seams or something, the seam allowances. When you have to press the seam allowances, maybe it's going to be easier when the sleeve is sewn up, but it didn't really matter. I didn't stitch that hole closed first. I mean, I left the hole and pressed the seam allowances, and they were fine. So I don't know the reason for that. And also there is, you've got those two gaps that you need to stitch by hand, or well, you can probably leave them like that. I've seen it in plenty of coats, and I think this is just an ordinary method. But again, tilling the buttons is smarter than that. So I use the same method. So without hand stitching, I kind of attached the lining, that I folded the lining, attached it, and then sewed everything closed. And yeah, it's just that easy. But when I explain it, you probably don't know what I'm talking about. It's just that you kind of make the fold, but attach the fold to the side of the facing. I find that I like making coats, and this one was one of the nice ones. There wasn't anything tricky or difficult, so I liked making this coat. I changed the needle because of the thickness of my fabric. I used the ballpoint needle 9014, but I used 2 of them because I think a fresh needle is just, you know, like a fresh start. So there is a lot of coat to sew, and there is a lot of sewing, so I just changed the needle. I didn't change the needle twice. I mean, I used a different needle. I used universal needle for my lining, but only 1 needle. But you might consider that because it gives you a cleaner shape. I started reading a lot about coat making. I mean, because I made the coat for Hedge Hubby, the thread theory one, I kind of wanted to learn more about coats, and I quite enjoy it. I learn about fabric and I learn about techniques, and I had some interlining left from Hedge Hubby's coat. I put the interlining into my lapels and the fronts, and it does make a difference. So I think that from now on, whenever I can, I will hand sew my interlining, and I will use the canvas and the horsehair, because it does make a difference. Because I put some fusible interfacing into some other parts because I simply didn't have enough of my canvas and horsehair and my interlining, and it does feel a bit cheap. You can tell the difference. So, and there isn't a lot of work when you are interlining or underlining something. It doesn't really take that much time, and it's quite pleasant because despite the fact that I absolutely hate hand stitching, I absolutely hate hand stitching because people can get a bit obsessed with it, and it's not really the look that I mind, it's how people treat it, almost like a god of sewing. And I think this is something that put me off sewing for a long time, because I do appreciate the skill and I admire the craftsmanship, and that's why I watch so many tailoring videos. I do admire all of that, but I absolutely hate the snobbery, the open snobbery that tells people who can only sew, I don't know, straight stitches on their machine and are just starting. It tells them that they're less important than somebody who is brilliant and has loads of experience, and I hate when people are kind of graded. Some people are better, some people are worse. No, some people are more experienced, some people are more talented, true. But if you start, you need encouragement. And you don't need somebody to tell you that nothing beats beautiful hand stitching. Maybe. I don't care. Sewing is sewing. If sewing gives you pleasure, sewing gives you pleasure, and nobody should spoil that. Nobody should tell you that this is not tailored enough or this is whatever. It's not how it should be done, whatever. Till we are professionals, and I'm not a professional, so I can do whatever I want, whatever gives me pleasure. I pay professionals to teach me, and funnily enough, the professionals are usually less snobbish than some non-professionals. So well, that's about hand sewing. I don't mind hand sewing, and when you hand sew the interlining, it doesn't show, so nobody's going to criticize it or nobody's going to admire it. So you do it for yourself, you do it because you want to, and you've got enormous pleasure when you know that it's done as you want it, and it feels great. So well, I'm probably a convert, and I had been a convert of sewing interfacing for some time because I don't like fusible interfacing. I do use it, but I've never been a friend with fusible interfacing, and I know that the quality matters, so I tried to buy the best quality I could afford of the fusible interfacing, and yes, it does matter, but I still don't like it because it still feels a bit like, I don't know, glued, and I don't mind gluing. Oh, come on, you don't know this story, but I'm going to tell you, so you will know. Because I've only been sewing for 2.5 years, right? About 4 years ago, when I was traveling, I had this habit of gluing things together, like repairing my wardrobe with glue. So I glued my buttons, for example, onto the garment. I glued my straps. I did not know how to sew, like at all. I had never in my life sewed ever, right? So I glued everything that needed gluing, and then, well, disposed of the garment. But as I was traveling, I needed an urgent repair because the strap of my my dress came off. So I glued it together and I went through the customs, and I could feel my dress going down and down and down, and I was walking like that, not really being suspicious at all. Well, I explained to the custom officers and they were quite understanding. If you know custom officers, they hardly ever smile, but I could notice that they were smiling a bit. But well, whatever. So maybe it's good that I've learned how to sew because I stopped gluing things. Well, anyway, let's leave the glue into my past. I think it's better if things are sewn together, but it just feels better. I don't know. I was a convert, but now I'm a convert into like tailored interlining because it does make a difference. I have checked and it does make a difference. It is expensive though. So we'll see. I'll think about it, but I quite like it, and it's not difficult. It takes a bit more time, but it's not difficult. And again, I'm talking too much. So if I have any tips when making this coat, well, obviously choose the right fabric, choose the right lining. The cuffs are quite difficult to sew because they're narrow, especially on thick fabric, so take that into consideration. Remember to have enough space to put your coat flat, because it does matter, because the coat being very heavy pulls. Something that I've learned early enough, but still sometimes forget, and sometimes I let something hang down and then I notice that it's pulling. Try to avoid that, and press. And I know I'm being boring and everybody says so, but there might be a reason that everybody says so. Press every seam till it's absolutely flat. Press it properly. Pre-shrink your fabric, so if you are working with wool, steam it, or whatever your method is, take it to the shower room and sit there for a few hours till it gets a bit damp, and then press it. Use the pressing cloth, and that's pretty much it. And use the clapper when you are, if you are working with wool, use the clapper. Use the wooden clapper. Obviously it would be awful not to show you my clapper, because my clapper is made by my husband, Hedge Hubby. Yes, and he didn't even know how a clapper looks like, so I just gave him a photo and he made me a clapper. He's going to make me a better one, a heavier one, but this one's brilliant. I use it all the time and it works. So, but if you want to make me another one, why not? I'm not going to say no, am I? So what do you think? Have you made this coat? Do you like making coats? I think making coats is super satisfying. I think Adrienne said the same thing in her video. Making coats just gives you a lot of pleasure. I know it's time consuming. I know that sometimes things go wrong and you swear, but it's the beauty of sewing. Okay, that's enough for today. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon. Bye.